Bigger than capes.
Give me some
Oh, yeah. I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Right.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I'm Zach. This week is our comic book roundup for April, and I'm joined by Angela, Will, and Matt. How y'all doing?
Good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Hi, Zach. I'm doing well, thanks. How is it that you are doing?
Yes.
I was doing better before you started talking. Like you sound like Siri reading out a message to me.
Oh no!
Oh.
Siri after Yoda's asked her a question.
I tried that with Siri once. It didn't go well.
I'm always surprised. Every now and again, Siri responds to me without me pressing the button, and it scares the living hell out of me every time.
Siri is always listening.
Yeah.
See, this is why I refuse to let that sort of thing into my house.
It's just depends what room I'm in. If Siri's listening in or if Alexa's listening, and I really need to pick a side. I'm aware of that. I need to
But they talk about you behind your back.
Christ, I hope not.
Maybe you should start playing one against the other while you're in Siri's audio bubble. You can start slagging off Alexa. So they start a price war, and suddenly everything you buy will be 12 pence for a guitar because they're so desperate for your affection and custom.
If that's the way it works, I'm okay with that. I'm willing to put my technology against each other in a battle for the ages.
Yeah, just
well, that's been Bigger Than Capes April roundup. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Good show.
down with technology.
Really good.
So, have you guys been doing anything? You've been busy, or not?
The usual. I've done some baking, reading some books, some comics. I've been reading a new manga called An Extremely Attractive Gorilla, which is pretty good. It's just a gorilla that is apparently extremely attractive, wears a tie like Donkey Kong, with a collar, and it's just him helping people in daily situations, in part through being handsome. But there's a pretty good chapter that's an Initial D riff where the gorilla is taking a driving test and starts and it's drifting the car, and Matt through his incredible driving puts both the driving instructor and the other person taking the test to sleep through his gentle rocking driving. It's very good.
Sounds incredible.
Is this on the Shonen Jump app?
No.
Does it actually exist, or was this just a dream that you had once?
I will send you. I will send you an image of it in the chat.
I really look forward to that.
Not what I expected the answer to be from Matt, but I'll take it.
Sorry. Oh, I've been catching up on She-Ra, which is just wonderful cartooning. Unashamedly, just camp and boisterous. Genuinely, quite funny.
I find myself regularly just sitting around thinking about She-Ra and just no real reason, and just be man, She-Ra was good. I miss She-Ra. The same with Kipo as well. Kipo is something that keeps coming back up. Can I just keep watching the two things over and over forever and eventually die happy?
Kipo. It does just sort of seem that the people who were inspired by Avatar, the first time it came round, that is the last Airbender, rather than the blue, the blue tall people. Are kind of now making cartoons in that same vein. I can't I can't continue. I'm watching Matt laugh at the image he's put in the chat. I need to see it.
I mean,
oh my God, he is so handsome.
This gorilla, he can do it.
On so many levels.
Oh, that's excellent.
Wow, we're so derailed in like less than 5 minutes in.
Is this a record for derailment?
I think we'll have to like rank how quickly a podcast can get derailed, but
yeah,
to set the record. But yeah, She-Ra, great. Go watch it.
Yeah, no, I second that. It's just good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Catching up with some of my like comics that were quite popular like a year ago. So things like Isola, Invisible Kingdom. You can tell where I am in my I'm in the eyes as well.
I'm getting that. Yeah.
It is alphabetically.
Working my way alphabetically through, but I do it often where I buy loads of books. I need to see this one as well. I buy loads of books. I'm just
enjoying Zach's reaction
there's
to
it. There's no context to this, and I missed the context.
Are we going to have to include these like in the
in episode notes?
So the people at home can bask in the glory of whatever that is.
Yeah, I'm sorry to the audience out there who don't know what's happening right now.
It's not really working in an audio format.
I am in a similar way to Will. I've been trying to catch up on the things that I've purchased and ignored. After, let's be honest, the best part of 10 years since I read the first volume, I finally finished reading Alex and Ada like 2 days ago.
Oh wow!
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's quite a tight. Is it over 3 volumes in the end?
Yeah, 3 trades. Doesn't end quite the way I expected, but
I think the third. You know, I read them back. Like I sort of bought them as a pack and read it all. Was there any delay between either issues or volumes? Because it feels like the third volume takes a bit of a left turn, as if they walked away from it and come back and thought, I've sort of changed my mind about what I want to do here, but I don't, because I read it all as one. I don't know whether that's remotely true.
It's weird because that is a similar feeling to what I had. I have not checked, but it feels like it's kind of a conclusive volume, but not necessarily what was intended to be the third volume.
Yeah.
I've also, this might come as a shock, but I'm still reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. So how far along are you now in the Great Turtle reread?
Well, I'm in a period where I've just read the Mute Animals miniseries.
Beautiful stuff. I love the Mute Animals.
Arguably my favorite miniseries. I think it's good stuff, and it's Paul Aller, who we obviously we've been covering Hollow Heart at biggerthanchaos.com, also in that roundup last month or the month before. It's kind of nice going back to some of his previous work where he just does Turtles miniseries. But yeah, Mute Animals is really good. I've been reading some of the ongoing, so I'm up to about issue 50, so I'm halfway to
how much longer have you got before the goal?
I've got just over a month to read a lot of comics.
You've got about 70 issues, haven't you, give or take, with all the tie-ins?
Sorry, Angela. I need to do this. Shut up, Will. Yes. I've got like at least 70 issues because I've got 50 issues of the main series and the tie-ins. The next thing I'm going to be reading is the Casey and April miniseries, which I've read before. So now in context. Yeah, context probably helps, right? But then, I've got TMNT Universe, which is like 20 issues.
Also great.
Yeah, I've read a bit of that before as well, and I'm looking forward to reading it with a bit more context. That's probably for the best.
You get a lot of Sophie Campbell in that bit as well. A lot of Sophie Campbell art.
That is what I'm here for, mate.
Hells yeah, it's real good.
Don't get me wrong, there's some other great artists, like is it Matteo Santaluco, who does Cityfall and a few of the others. Yes. Real good. I expect this is a stupid detail that comes from reading too much Turtles in one sitting, but I'm really into the fact that he gives them all like slightly different styles of masks. That's where I'm at in life now.
They have different masks. Their heads are different shapes. They all have slightly different colours of green.
Yeah.
And they all have different combinations of like wrist pads and elbow guards and knee guards, so that no matter what the scenario, you can always tell which is which. It's genius.
Yeah.
There's certain things that have come up in my like appreciation from reading so much of it that I'm like, there's things where I go, wait a minute, have they always had slightly different coloured wrappings on their feet? And then think, what am I doing? What? It could not matter less to like the reading experience. Like, have they always had slightly different whatever? And the answer is no, it depends on the artist. But
at least I'll have somebody to go to my TMNT anonymous meetings with now. It was just me on my own reciting
Just
the storylines from the comic.
you talking to a rat and no real context.
Yeah.
This one time with Shredder, but now you can listen to it.
There's things that have come up. So I've recently read Attack on Technodrome, and I've tried. So I did like a little. I've been doing the video diary for myself on Instagram, and I've tried to give away no spoilers. But my entire thing for that was just me going, "Oh, this is good. This is proper good." Like. And I think
Take my word for it.
Yeah, it's like the fact that it's like Cityfall, 8 issues, Attack on Technodrome, and it's just such a solid, like, this is good stuff, though. This is proper good stuff. So that's my review of TMNT issues 1 to 50, plus all the miniseries.
It's good stuff.
Just proper good stuff, mate. And on that bombshell, Angela, have you been doing anything?
Nothing. I can't top any of this, can I? I mean, come on. Like, leave me... I've been outside. I mean, that's a novelty, isn't it? Going outside.
It's a great thing.
You know, having people in the garden. I mean, generally, you know, a couple of, you know, one of them lived with me, so it wasn't that exciting. But, you know, you know, I had one person in the garden who didn't live with me, so, you know, wow. That's a lockdown thing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've been doing that. And, yeah, trying to review all the things for biggerthancapes.com. I've fallen behind a little this week, but don't worry, kids. There's a lot of excellent, terrible word salad content from me to come on that one.
You've been an absolute machine, Angela.
You have
been pumping them out.
I'm about to only get my second piece up in the next couple of days. So, you know, as long as you never review anything again, I'll slowly catch up with you over the course of a few years.
I'm a quantity, not a quality girl, which if you've read the reviews, you will understand what I mean by that. But no, it's been fun. And I got to do an interview as well the other week. That was fun.
Last week's episode, the interview with David Post.
Yeah, he's a very nice chap.
He is, and it's a really good interview. I feel like I've learned some things. It
was interesting as we were going along. I was learning as we were going. It was very exciting.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Stuff.
Incidentally, this has been a double interview week, because we've also had the interview with Matt Groom go up.
Oh, yes.
So
many interviews. So, to all the comic creators out there, if you want to be interviewed, and we know what you've done,
even if we don't,
I'm
a big fan of the interviews that I have to panic prepare for. Interviews be good. I stand by that.
Yeah.
I like hearing things from people and learning stuff that isn't just our own speculation.
It's nice to have some context.
I only like to hear and read things that support my already insane beliefs. Thank you very much.
Luckily enough for Will, I think every interview we do probably does just reinforce his insane beliefs.
Comics be life.
This is probably the point in the show where we should give a shout out to our sponsor.
Yes. And who is our sponsor, Matt?
Our sponsor is Traveling Man. They have comics, manga, board games, trading card games, Funko Pops if you're into that, and good figurines as well. And they have stores in Manchester, York, Newcastle, and Leeds. And they are on the web as well at Zach.
Travelingman.com.
Yep. there we have it. And have they reopened yet, Zach?
Yeah, they're back.
I have. I've been in.
Oh, what was it like, Will?
It was pretty much the same as when they closed. They've rearranged a little bit. This was the Manchester store for any of our erstwhile listeners. It's been rearranged. There's still a maximum people in store, but in terms of the goodies and stock, it's all back to the way it was. So action as usual. Lots of copies of Berserker issue 2 in various covers.
Huh.
Good to know.
If only we'd got issue 1.
Yeah.
I think it was issue 2. Anyway, there's lots of them.
So, that is our sponsor.
Yeah.
Please go check them out, I guess.
Okay.
So, back in reality world, this month we've got 4 exciting comics from 4 books, 3 publishers.
You decide how exciting they are.
Yes.
1 review of each.
To rule them all.
Yeah.
Or not. We have predetermined our order, which means I'm up first. Yay!
Dive straight in.
So,
I didn't say it in that order just to make you have to.
That's fine. I live for this stuff, you know how it is. So, I'll be introducing you. Please gather around, people. I'll be introducing you all to the Silver Coin #1, The Ticket. Published by Image, written by Chip Zdarsky, and arted, lettered, coloured, conceptualized, I don't know, by Michael Walsh. There is also editing by Chris Hampton. All right, gonna just go for this because I didn't write anything down. So brace yourself.
Ready.
So, in the Silver Coin, Joe's in a band. I can't remember their name. I'm sure it's something clever. They're in a band, and he's in a band with his friends Ashley and Joe, and they play music but they play rock and roll, and unfortunately, disco's come around, and we all know what that means for rock and roll. It has to take a backseat to, disco, because people like disco.
In the 70s, at least.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Joe finds himself a silver coin amongst his mother's possessions. Where's his mum, you ask? She's left. Why? I don't know. Where to? Just cause. So he finds himself a silver coin, which he ends up using as a guitar pick, which if anyone's ever played guitar with a coin, you'll know how much that sucks.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
However, he finds that playing with this magic coin gives him... Oh, sorry, yeah, the coin's magic. He finds that playing with this coin just makes him better and makes the band better, and people stop thinking they suck and that they like disco and start thinking that they're having a good time seeing his band.
Running Red.
Yeah, Running Red is the band.
Running Red, thank you. I knew it was...
It's a bad band name, so it's not going to stick in the memory.
What's worse is I read it when it says Running Red, and I read it as something else, and then had to go back and be like, that can't be what this said. I don't know what I mistook it for, but... So I would say, and I warned Angela I was going to do this, and I'm so sorry.
I'm ready for this now.
This story is one part The Red Shoes, so the kind of old horror film, horror
Hal
story.
Pressburger film.
Could be. Red Shoes dances herself to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like ballerina.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yes. And one
I didn't realise you were a Alan Pressburger fan, Will.
Indeed.
Oh, we should have a mini episode on Life Colonel Blimp.
Oh, Life and Death Colonel Blimp. Yes, anyway, sorry. We'll stop
go on.
right there.
That wasn't even the bit that's going to derail this chat. So it's one part The Red Shoes, and I kind of feel like it's also one part Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. And
yeah, I mean it is.
And I didn't know that was a combination I was going to be like super into, but here we are. I'm kind of into, guitar pick makes you super talented, but also, leads to your inevitable demise live on stage. It's relatable. It speaks to me on a personal level. We've all been there.
We'll be looking for magic cursed coins that can give us that extra edge and then kill us all.
Maybe this is it. I played guitar with a 10p coin at one point and immediately wrote it off as painful and uncomfortable. Maybe I should have kept going until I found the right coin. That's the problem here.
The right evil magic coin.
Yeah, maybe it was a 50p you should have looked into, perhaps.
Definitely not a 20p. I think we all know that. They're just
too
weird a size. Anyone got anything they want to add before I just go down a guitar pick coin?
I mean, sorry, Andrew. I feel like you were going to go there.
I can go. It's a very good book. That's all I have to say. No, it's. I like the fact that you've got this. It's a self-contained story, but also, you've got the silver coin is the thread that's going to tie all these different issues together because they're all done by different people. Although I'm expecting Michael Walsh to literally be doing all the art, all the colours, all the letters all the time. So.
Oh God, yeah, and I'm really into the fact that it looks like the next issue, which is Kelly Thompson and Michael Walsh.
Oh, it is like a. Yeah, it's like a Friday the 13th.
It looks like Friday the 13th.
Friday the
It walks like Friday the 13th. It's called Girls of Summer.
That looks good.
All in. I'm just...
I just really like the concept of the kind of horror anthology, but having the through line of the coin.
Yeah.
And I guess not to sort of spoil too much, but we know, I mean, from conversation, that it doesn't end good for our erstwhile guitarist Joe.
No.
But what I really like is that it is set in the 70s, and the person who picks up the coin isn't the immediate next story.
Yeah.
And I really like that it suggests that we could come back later to another story set in the 70s, or there might be something else.
Just going to be time hopping.
Absolutely. I think that's really cool, and we can just see the journey of this coin. And I guess as we see it, learn more about what it is and why it's doing evil magics.
Yeah.
Evil magics. Yeah, because the coin is really nice because it's got the little eye on it, and bit of blood dripping down his finger. It's the images in it are great.
What Angela's saying is that she wants the coin so that she can write even more reviews.
Yeah, we'll have
more evil reviews.
Evil reviews, yes. Reviews that mean you can't turn the computer off and you just browse the internet all night
until your computer overheats and you die.
I mean, I've actually done that though, so that's just a curse anyone who has a computer lives with, really, isn't it?
True, very, very true. I do think this is really good. I think Michael Walsh's art really works.
Yeah.
There's some really nice individual panels. There's the one where he's kind of holding the coin over one of his eyes. Big fan of that. I wonder how long it took him to practice that in the mirror,
So, I really love the sort of some of the face work in this. And when I realized actually how much I liked some of the expressions and stuff, it was seeing the dad.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I was going to go for. The sad father figure is
sad sort of just broken man.
It doesn't even have eyes.
Yeah, you see them see eyes for one panel when he lowers his glasses, but it's just great. And the droopy mustache ties it all together, and he just looks just so sad in every panel, and I just love how real it feels.
Yeah, that's fair.
And there's a lot of I think that's one of the best examples of it, but it's there in everyone. In all of the characters, there's that excellent sort of communication of character through facial expressions,
and there's a great showing of time period through facial hair.
Yeah. Very 70s.
Yeah, the Bee Gees like cover band.
Yeah, Disco Hits,
incredible.
Yeah,
yes.
That's them.
Are incredible. Like for not looking exactly like the Bee Gees, but like being enough like what you expect a club band that covers like the Bee Gees would look like.
Yeah, it's so accurate.
And, like, the guy at the back looks the main guy from Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh God, what's his name?
That guy.
Yeah, it's gone. Collective misremembering of ELO frontman.
Which, of course, means one of us is going to scream his name in about 10 minutes' time.
While we wait for that inevitable scream, I think one of my favourite bits about this is the colouring and how it helps with like the pace of the book. Every change of scene is a different colour. Every time they change from one place to another, whether it's on stage, backstage, in a house, in a bedroom, like they are all represented by different colours. And I really think it helps with the pace of a book. If you're trying to tell a story just in one issue, obviously you need to get a lot of information and sometimes cover quite a period of time. And I think this really helps that happen.
Yeah. And
Jeff Lynne.
Jeff Lynne.
Thank you.
Well done.
And we see the same colours come up a few times, but yeah, I think so we get some green pages, some red pages, some pinky purple pages, some blues.
Yes, it's like largely monochrome.
Nice.
Every change is just a change of scene. So often when they're playing, it's like a hot pink.
Yeah.
There is one example of it being kind of, I guess, green when they're hanging out, which immediately made me thought they're all smoking joints.
Yeah,
there's a bit.
I think they are.
Yeah,
there's a bit when they're outside, and then there's no color filter. That's the one bit where there seems to be just kind of natural colorings. When they're backstage, it's kind of really murky and kind of grays and blues, and everything kind of has a tone and a feel to it. And I thought the coloring was excellent and really assisted the book and its storytelling, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna say the lettering, because that's the kind of person I am, as we all know.
I also like the lettering quite a lot.
The lettering is excellent. I think it's the best lettering of any book we've looked at this week. Particularly because so much of it is Joe's like inner monologuing self. And you can sort of see as he slowly loses it just a little bit under the influence of this coin, there's a definite shift with it.
It's very scrawly.
Yes. Which is nice.
I thought the kind of narration we get that's like floating in the air rather than being in narration boxes did kind of remind me of is it Hazel in Saga? Her narrations are always just like written places.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's something we don't see that often, so it's nice when we do.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just want to know what they sound like, this particular band.
It's always my question.
Yeah.
What I found quite amusing was that when he's at the end and he's playing and he's joined Disco Hits, so they must be playing something like Night Fever, and all these people effectively like dance themselves to death or until the building burns down around them.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, probably a little bit.
I mean,
yeah.
Spoilers. But the art, like, it looks like he's playing some intense death metal, and it's like shredding his fingers apart. But you think like the real sound must be incredibly.
I was thinking like Hendrix.
That's it. Like he's really sort of like wigging out. But when you look at all the people, they're still doing like disco dancing moves, and so I assume that what's happening is still just disco music, just the best
The
Disco
best, most
music.
aggressive.
Either that or it's staying alive at 5 times speed.
I have to ask the question: death metal disco, does that exist? Is that a genre that I need to look into?
I am
Post it to yourself.
Somebody Google that.
Yeah, if no one else is doing it, I'm just going to throw my hat into the ring, as I think that might be. I think
It's a niche
so
there.
there looks to be a band called Death Metal Disco Scene.
damn. But did they do what I want? Do they do what I want them to, or do they just think that's a cool name?
I've not listened to them yet, Zach. We'll come back with an update next time.
I think as quite a simple creative team with just the 2 people, really, and an editor as well. But I think this is really well put together, and I think it comes across that Michael Walsh has put a lot of time into the art. There's also that one panel with the lettering, when everything gets kind of crazy and warped and weird. Funnily enough, the same page as the disco dancing scene where all the words kind of like start to fall off the panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
it's creepy and weird. That's what I'm here for.
It's just a really well put together book.
Yeah, it's really well paced. I think a lot of first issues that we read through doing this, we sometimes feel a little bit undersold in terms of what the story's going to be, because it's the first of a bigger thing. Because this is self-contained, it's a really satisfying issue to read, I think.
Yes.
And because it's part of an anthology, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next. And it's got nothing to do with these characters, but it's such a well-paced and well-written kind of almost Freak of the Week style.
Yeah.
Kind of like it could have been an episode of X-Files or like Supernatural or something.
Yeah, or Crypt Keeper, like Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, great stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Which I think that might bring us to.
So, reading this comic, it felt like, real magic had been
yeah.
together.
There was some magic working in that little coin. And speaking of magic, Will.
Yeah.
Let's get you to talk about this comic.
Not sure where you're going with this.
Well, we're gathering up our ideas on how to do a transition.
Okay. I don't get it, but next. Magic the Gathering, issue 1 from Boom Studios, written by Jed MacKay with art by Guara, colours by Ariana Consoni, and letters by Ed Dukeshire. Or Dukeshire. Depends where you're from, I guess. The kind of elevator pitch of this book is that 3 leaders of 3 of the great guilds of Ravnica are the targets of an attempted assassination. The reason behind the attempt and why these 3 were targeted is a mystery the guild leaders set out to find out. Too many outs. Doesn't matter. There it is.
They're out.
I will preface this by saying I'm a fan of Magic the Gathering, the game. And I read this with a bit of an unusual viewpoint, I think, going into it. I have a friend who I play Magic with, but he's not a huge comics guy. So I told him about that these books were coming around. So when I read this, I always had at the back of my mind, like, what would this be like for somebody entering it who isn't a comics fan necessarily? So coming from the Magic side of things. And then I thought about it, well, what would it be like if you read it and you're not a Magic fan, but you are a comic fan? I've got to say, I don't think it really succeeds on either way round, if I'm entirely honest.
I think you might have considered those 2 possibilities a great deal more than anybody at Boom Studios did.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you. Comic.
There are lots of bits about it that I kind of had me smiling. So there's a load of name drops that obviously if you played the game, like Ravnica, Zendikar,
Dominaria.
Yeah, and Jace. Fucking Jace.
Yeah.
I ain't seen him with so many drops.
Like the Eldrazi seemingly showing up.
Yeah.
So all of those bits are quite fun, and I think if you are coming from Magic to comics, a couple of the name drops are sort of amusing. But in the same way, when a sort of a comic book film drops something for the real comic book nerd, and you can have a little giggle to yourself and be like, "Oh, nobody gets it but me." But really, it's not a sign of artistic intent. It's just a little tidbit of information.
I think one of my complaints about a lot of those Easter eggs and name drops is they're all like within the first like 5 pages as like a super dense exposition-y, like.
Yes.
Whilst they do feel like name drops and Easter eggs, it's also like, all right, sit down, shut up. We're going to give you all the information right now. And it's like...
It's incredibly dense, and I think...
Yeah,
there's
only for the first couple of pages.
Yeah, but I think if you're coming from a comic side without having played any Magic, and I don't know what you guys...
That's kind of me. I mean, I know I am aware of Magic. Somebody tried to teach me how to play it once. It didn't end well for either of us. So I'm familiar with it. I know, what a guild is and all the rest of it, but my actual working knowledge of Magic is, quite frankly, appalling. So I was kind of coming from it more of a comic side. A man exposition's boring. I was like, oh, I kind of know that's a reference to a thing that exists in Magic, but I don't know what it is, and I don't particularly care. It didn't sell me.
No, I think it's a number one from a brand new studio as well. So really like working from the ground up.
It has a really difficult task because like Magic has really, really dense lore and also lacks a lot as well. Like
of the
connecting
lore
tissue.
Definitely, the lore exists just to purpose the art on the cards, basically.
And
like,
occasionally.
Yeah,
I had this exact conversation with Marta yesterday, where she pointed out that like Warhammer has books, or D&D, or Halo. Every game property ends up having a comic or a book or I don't know, any kind of things, and there's normally like 100 books and people say 5 of them are good, and I guess that's the same kind of thing here, where not every Magic comic is going to be like for everybody, and not every Warhammer comic or that there's a lot of these things, and this probably isn't the first Magic comic there's been, let's be honest.
Sure. Absolutely. I think Marvel used to have the license, or maybe Dark Horse before Boom did. But there have definitely been other runs. I just think, for me, I would have preferred it if you took one character and had them exploring the various planes and worlds and learning the lore that way, as opposed to just being, as you say, kind of rammed in the middle of it.
Yeah, just going in media res, but still having to do that huge exposition drop over the first few pages rather than letting it unfurl naturally. But I guess the thought is that, like, basically, if you're going to buy this, you're probably buying it because you like Magic the Gathering.
It just seems like a perfect marriage between two, like, nichedoms of nerd. But I just feel it's missed the bar for both. I think the art's quite pretty.
I will say, like, the art is nice, is actually very nice at points. It's just maybe a little too clean.
Bit digital.
Like, a bit shiny almost.
Yeah.
I think the action can be a little bit confusing sometimes. I think there are some perspective changes, or where it's flicking between characters sort of mid-action.
Yeah.
Particularly if you are coming in it as a Magic fan and not as a comic fan, you might not have that what's it called? The sort of knowledge of reading a comic.
Yeah, you might not have the vocabulary.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Then I could see you reading this and being real confused about what's going on.
I mean, I do have
bits.
the comic background, and I was still confused during certain. I had to look at the panels a couple of times to get. Oh yeah, because it does feel a bit like a melee. It's like, well, you've got this guild, and so there's an assassin here, and then there's this guild, and there's an assassin there, and there's this guild, and there's an assassin there. And like you say, it would have been way better if we'd have just had one character to focus on, just doing a thing, rather than. Here are all the guilds. Here are a bunch of assassins. They're all getting together. Now they're going to another guild. Oh, by the way, here's Jace the Planeswalker. And it's like, it's too much.
Whilst I like the art, and I was going to talk about how I think that there's some really nice kind of design work in here, except I then got really conflicted about that as a compliment, because it's not really design work for the comic, is it? It's design work that's been done
it's a mix
amount of years ago for a lot of it.
It's a mix. Like, you've got to remember that, like, interpretation of design as well. Like, you'd have for some of the characters, you'd have like a template that you're working off of.
But for characters like the Planeswalkers we see are immediately recognizable as the Planeswalkers from the cards, from the packaging, from the... Yeah. So I think some of the cool character designs are like long-existing cool character designs.
Yeah, but again, like I say, there is elements of like interpretation and like
definitely
that are always going to be there, like as in and the artist's individual style that will alter things slightly. They'll like have their own version of like the model.
Yeah, that's true.
Like their Vriska is is slightly different, like in a way from like the cards. Like it'll be, even if it's just in a case of like the way that the head will go into the sort of like will go back into the I'm doing the air quotes hair, like snakes and stuff like.
But it's kind of like Ditko's Spider-Man to McFarlane's Spider-Man, isn't it? The core concepts are there. They're always going to be the same sort of colours and rough design. But even the cards are re-released with new packs. So the same card might have 3 or 4 different types of art on it.
Yeah,
I get your point. Like, these are not
completely original designs.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess I'd kind of argue within the world of high fantasy, there are very few times that things seem really original. Within that kind of swords and sorcery.
That is true, because we all know what an elf looks like, because elves have basically looked the same since Lord of the Rings.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
That's true.
Have anybody read Seven to Eternity?
Oh, it's on my list.
I've read a tiny little bit.
I think that's quite a good one for creating a familiar feeling, but quite unique kind of fantasy sort of world. That's by the way.
I will say, however, people with their eyes sewn shut, always creepy.
Yeah.
Always creepy.
Yeah.
Don't matter where it is. It's always creepy.
That's true.
And also, I will always enjoy like a monster. Like in this one, it's like the Eldrazi sort of creature thing at the end that has ribs open. I will always think, oh, that's great. In part of like a monster design, because it terrifies me in a way where I'm just like, the idea of rib trauma, I'm just like, oh no, thank you.
I thought the script could be a little cheesy in parts. I think some of the kind of one-liners and zingers were a little bit sort of on the nose. Having said that, I think they keep the text to a decent kind of level, and I think they do a decent story in telling the story, a decent job in telling the story through the text without it having to be too exposition-y, at least once it's got past those first sort of 3-page information dump.
Yeah, once it's past the exposition, it's not very exposition-y.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's a lot better once it gets past that initial info dump.
Yes.
I did
find some of the script a bit annoying.
Yeah, I hope that it'll get. I'm sure since it's a licensed property, it won't have to worry about immediate cancellation.
No,
I hope that it kind of gets to stretch, like that it gets to stretch a bit more and actually kind of now that we're past the exposition. Like the initial exposition, like we're going to get a bit more, I think, next issue where they'll go like, oh, what are the Eldrazi, like, and stuff. But I really hope that MacKay gets the room to actually kind of work on some of that stuff, free from having to just write exposition.
Yeah, I think the thing is, can you develop a situation where you can tell us the lore without it just being taught? Like, can you find a fun way to explore these worlds?
And it's like a difficult situation to be in.
I really like the covers of both this and issue 2 by Matteo Scalera of Black Science fame.
Yes, the issue 2 cover is quite nice.
Yeah.
With like the shifting faces. Yeah. So, does anyone else have anything left to say on Magic the Gathering?
Not particularly. I just think if for whatever reason you're coming to this book, I can't help but feel you might be a little disappointed. But I agree with you. I think I am, because of my taste for Magic, I'm pretty willing to give this maybe another 2 issues to see if it'll click into place. But I'm not going to be too precious about it if it's...
No. That was actually a question I was going to ask, because I think we mentioned on a previous episode that me and Will did, there's the 85,000 copies of this or something absurd have sold at issue 1. So, yeah, my question was going to be, as the Magic player of our gathering.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Nice.
I'm like a broadly retired Magic player.
Pokemon only, Yu-Gi-Oh! On the weekends, but...
Dragon Ball Z card game to break up, those long
Oh yeah, like I get out that Digimon card game sometimes.
I think Warhammer having another go at it as well, because
I've got their really old, like second edition,
ones.
second edition of Warhammer card game that they did, and yeah, I think they're doing card games again, but I've not played any of that in a long time as well.
No. But I just want this comic to have substance, I think. Don't just be a continual kind of name drop of cards that I like. If it can get into that, it can ride that sort of Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, when licensed properties are good sort of wave, then great. And if it doesn't, fine. Still like the game.
I say that, but just you wait until I see your face when Khan appears.
I would quite like it if we could introduce like names of cards and stuff, but like in a different context. So if it could just be like Gaia's Cradle, or like, just
Black Lotus.
Yeah, if we could get that
Truffles
kind of
I love the Truffles.
awkward introductions and stuff. I don't know. If we could like replace all swearing with just like random exclamations of card names, I'd be into that.
Yeah, but all I know is I keep seeing adverts for Magic the Gathering Arena on mobile all over YouTube lately. Every other video. So now whenever I watch these videos, I'll think of this comic. Yeah.
Speaking of thinking of Magic, Angela, Shadowman.
Yes, Shadowman, yeah. He lurks in the shadows. He's a man. Right. Shadowman is, to the surprise of no one, because I'm introducing it, from Valiant. Written by Cullen Bunn. Artisted by Jon Davis-Hunt. colorist Geordie Belair, the hardest working colorist in comics.
Yeah.
And lettered by Clayton Cowles, who is a fairly decent letterer for those of you who follow letterers' careers like I do, because I have no life. So the characters of Shadowman, you have Jack Boniface, who is Shadowman. He lives in New Orleans, and he is the host to the Shadow Loa. It's spelt Loa. I've never come across the way I pronounce it correctly. Loa. There we go. Thank you, Matt. And see, the problem is the comic opens with an explanation that's essentially wrong. If you've been following Shadowman recently,
That's not how comics work.
That's not how comics work. Basically, we're just going to dive quickly into the fact that there have been 2 runs of Shadowman in Valiant. There was one in the 90s, and there was one. There's been several in the modern era. This harks back more to the 90s lore. As we're into lore today, rather than the more modern runs that we've had. So those of you familiar with modern Shadowman will be confused. Those of you familiar with 90s Shadowman will also be confused, which is extra. Extra. No one wins.
That's the right kind of compromise, though, isn't it? Everybody loses.
Everybody loses. Yeah. So essentially, Jack Boniface, who is a saxophonist, for those of you who care, that doesn't come into play much in this comic at all, apart from he misses a gig. So take that with what you will. But he is the host of the Shadow Loa, which makes him Shadow Man. Yeah. And then we have, you see, New Orleans has the veil, the space between our world and the dead side. The dead side is a really, really complicated concept that we're not going to get into here. Go read Valiant books. Read the Book of the Dead. Read that. Read all of that. Read Dr. Mirage. You want to know about the dead side. It's super complicated. But the essential point is it's kind of like an otherworldly, hellish realm that exists alongside our own, and occasionally monsters break through. And it's Jack's job to kind of, deal with said monsters who come into our world and murder and kill. Again, this isn't really what we've been used to Shadowman, because there was a whole other thing that's been involved with Shadowman, but this is what we're going with. This is what Cullen Bunn has chosen to tell the story. So he's going around making sure that these monsters don't kill people. And then we've got Baron Samedi. Samedi. Thank you. Correct me again.
See, I'd always gone Samedi.
Sorry.
Samedi. See, these are the questions. Again, he's a complicated character, and his appearance here, again, it's not quite within what we have been expecting from Shadowman. But anyway, he gives Shadowman a job, essentially, to go to a mansion where an old woman called Elspeth
Martinet.
Thank you, Matt. Is holding some sort of ritual to try and break the veil between our world and the dead side, and bad things happen, and he has to, solve the problem. And essentially, Valiant are, of course, re-releasing, for those of you who don't know, the Shadowman game. If you follow their Twitter, you'll be very aware of this, and it does feel a little bit like that's why we've released a comic about Shadowman that harks back more to that era.
My first note of this was that it feels like both a reboot and a continuation.
Yes.
But I'm not sure what it's a continuation of. So I don't know if this is meant to pick up from the 90s with some of the references that have been laid down in the video game, or if this is meant to pick up from 2 years ago, which I can't remember for the life of me how the last run ended.
No, wasn't he battling Master Dark in the last run, and Master Dark's sister?
I thought just the sister, because I thought Master Dark's a tree now, isn't he?
Oh, he is a tree. Yeah, that's right. He's a tree now. Yeah.
I'm glad that we've managed to say something absolutely bonkers in
This is what, it was in the good
straight
old
off
days.
the bat with Shadowman.
This is in the good old days when Valiant was decent and was not afraid to turn a character into a tree.
Yeah.
Those were the days. Yeah, he had the whole thing with his sister, and it didn't, and it doesn't feel like a continuation of that, because this didn't jog my memory at all with the last run, but it did jog my memory with 1996.
So a good vintage for Shadowman, I think.
I mean, it was all right. He was blue then, though. He was more of a blue.
He was. Yeah, he had that whole blue tinge.
He
Not
had
enough
the blue
blackage
tinge.
going there.
No.
The problem.
No.
See, I'm I'm a Valiant fan, but not so much necessarily the kind of mystical side of it. I think I've struggled with Shadowman and Dr. Mirage as characters a little more than some of the others. I don't think, you might correct me if I'm wrong, Angela, but I don't think Shadowman's ever had a defining run yet. Like, I think there have been good and bad bits, and I've only read anything since 2012. And the first 2 volumes of the initial release were quite good.
Mm-hmm.
The third volume was complete trash. it was awful.
I'm inclined to agree with you on this. I think it's been very back and forth. We also see in the past of Shadowman, we see amazing ideas that then play out off screen. So when he was reinvented as the magpie with the dreadlocks and the glowing blue chains, and then the whole plot happened like between volumes.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is very similar as a first issue to the first issue of the original 2012 Shadowman. Yeah. So it's like old people are doing something suspicious and kind of occult, and
in New Orleans,
and there's mansions, and Shadowman's here to save the day, and there's stuff happening on the fringes. Also, he constantly takes advice from bad guys, from Master Dark, Baron Samedi, Babel, takes their advice, and basically he's constantly like, I know this guy's the villain. I can see. He doesn't have any skin on his entire head. He seems like a good guy. I'm going to trust him. He seems like a character who cannot learn from his mistakes, which is odd.
I think
if Will's right, there is no defining. That is one of the problems with Shadowman, is we don't have a decent defining run for him, like we do with other characters. Like with Archer and Armstrong, you've got Van Lente's run. Yes. With Bloodshot, you've got Lemire's run. With Exo, I don't know. Depends. He had depends. Vendetti probably over. I'd go Vendetti over Kint. But we don't. No one seems to know, because the other problem with Shadowman is he is black, and there is also this little awkward magical Negro stuff that we have to kind of not go too far down the rabbit hole with. It's just a really difficult character to try and actually do something with, unfortunately. And
particularly if you're Cullen Bunn. I mean, no offense to the guy, but he's still a white man, and I think based on something which seems to be kind of voodoo, New Orleans style kind of spiritualism and magic, I think it's a really, really cool setting. I love the idea of that. But despite it being set there, and like Baron Samedi being part of that kind of mythos, it doesn't feel like it's about it. It doesn't feel like that is an important part of the storytelling in any way. I think that's maybe a missed opportunity. That it just feels like that's the reason for his powers rather than any driving force in the plot.
It does feel a little bit like Cullen Bunn has been like the Valiant, I don't know, like go-to. I mean, he did the Roku series and the Punk Mambo series, and now Shadowman. And I feel
it's Brian Michael Bendis, isn't it?
A little bit, and it's strange because I don't get me wrong, I like Cullen Bunn as a writer, but same. I kind of feel like whereas a few years ago we saw Valiant series that were quite tailored to what Lemire did Bloodshot, and whilst I don't believe Bloodshot was like the top of Lemire's characters he dreamt about writing as a kid, I think when he came in he ultimately made it his own. The same with Jodie Hauser on Faith, or Fred Van Lente, Matt Kint. I kind of feel like, and whilst Fred Van Lente is someone who wrote basically anything available.
Fred Van Lente.
I kind of feel like Cullen Bunn is being just like chain given kind of mini-series to write at this point, and it feels a little odd.
The only thing is, I feel like Bunn, like if you've read The Sixth Gun, and some of the stuff in there with to do with like the lower and like particularly Haitian like voodoo stuff, like there's some decent stuff in there, And I feel like Bunn could do a good Shadowman. I think like that like it's not necessarily the strongest first issue. But like I like Bunn enough, and I have like a strong enough faith in his sort of take on like, this is going to sound weird, but American mysticism, and like and like American take on like other sort of like other cultures' mysticism that kind of grows in that like in that sort of multicultural America that kind of breeds that breeds these sort of like mixed folklores, hybrid religions, and where things are colored by each other. So like from like Sixth Gun, I think he could do a good Shadowman run.
I think that's fair. And I think one of the massive positives with this book as well is I think Jon Davis-Hunt and Jordi Belair, I think the art and the colouring is really good. In particular, I think Jack's like transformations, and we see like the shadows like almost bleeding off of him, and then design stuff like him using the scythe, and then the scythe kind of becoming like a broken up scythe to be a whip later on.
Cool. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, and I think the colouring really works with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the art is definitely a positive, particularly in that first double page fight, which I saw loads and loads in the promo kind of leading up to the release of this book.
Yeah, a little bit too much, I think. It's
maybe a little bit
seen it for months.
Yeah, but I do kind of like the almost action figure style design to everything. There's a tiny panel where I think he gets punched and does a backflip, and the way that it is shown is him like
so stiff in that flip.
Yeah,
and it's like perfectly side on. There's no background, and it feels like something that would happen in a Jerry Anderson puppet thing, where
like a shot motion kind of backflip.
They've set up one shot to kind of do this action, and I don't know. I really liked that. I enjoyed that kind of goofiness about it. I think.
I think that's There's some good stuff in that fight scene. I feel like it would have been nice if we had more fight scene stuff, but it's hard to fight a cloud of locust. In my experience, I don't know about you guys.
They did quite well with rendering the locust fight, considering that it's literally insects that you're trying to deal with.
Obviously, some limitations to how that fight can go.
When there was action, though, there's a bit where he kind of beats up 3 guards.
And,
I thought that was a good 3-panel moment, because he talks about being stronger and faster, and in those 3 panels, like when he punches the first guy, the other 2 are like only just noticing he's moved, or I think at least I got that impression.
That is the way it looks.
They don't move because he's so fast, and speed sometimes is really hard to show in comics. I think that's why Flash has a huge red tail. It's like, how else do you kind of show motion and speed? But I think that really did it with their reactions to him just being so delayed. And by the time they knew what was going on, they're already on the ground. I think that was a good sequence of action in that moment.
Yeah, that's fair.
Again, I found the script a little annoying. Getting this. It's just little bits like don't get your lower in a twist, and I just it just feels so obvious of like a little sitcom language that it was a bit eye rolling in parts.
I think the best dialogue is probably between him and the poor little monster in the basement.
Yeah.
That was because I didn't like some of his interactions with Baron Samedi. Were like, yeah, he's a bad guy, dude. You know he's a bad guy. He's just basically telegraphing he's a bad guy. Whereas it was actually quite touching, that bit with the that was my fauvorite bit.
Yeah, that might be the best page, I think.
Yeah, and then it's like, I was right. You are going to save me after. Yeah, that I think was the strongest bit of it for me in terms of the writing.
I think if they can build that idea, though, that to us, they're monsters, to them, we're monsters, and Shadowman is like the arbiter in between.
Yes.
I think that's a cool place to be and give those monsters some empathy as well as making them horrifying, but also show how humans like abuse that from our side. It would also give reason then for trusting in people like Samedi. It's like, well, he might have his own agenda, but he's not exclusively evil. I think if it can write into that direction, I think that could be a really interesting basis for a Shadowman book. And I, like you said, Matt, I really like The Sixth Gun. I think I think that's a really like great series of books. And I know what Cullen Bunn is capable of doing when like he gets it right. But I've also read, Deadpool Back in Black for some reason, and that it was real bad. I don't know. I hope he nails it, and I think there's certainly room for it. I think there's room for him to get into that.
Yeah, I'd like for him to do well, because I want a good Shadowman book. And I'd like there to be... I don't think this is going to be a definitive run, but I want it to be good.
I do also wonder, and this is probably something I can look up and find the answers for. I'm curious if this is going to be like a mini-series, or if we are hoping for this to be an ongoing, because I think almost all Valiant books at the moment seems to be one arc and done. I'd like to see them put some faith and support into Shadowman, especially if the game's like their... Hey, we're getting back into the video game business, guys.
Because that went so well last time.
Hey, guys, Acclaim is back.
And in a big way.
I could see a potential of Valiant just sort of changing their kind of marketing ideal and becoming more of that rather than the broad ongoing. I think that is super hard to sustain if you don't have those really big name characters, and even people who come in on the ground floor and love these characters, I think are unfortunately the minority in these sorts of books. And I get the feeling that like standalone stories, sort of like a Tintin model where it's the same character in the same world, but
just like the graphic album format of just like that just release a story. And
I could see Valiant sort of edging into that and just going, look, we've got all of these characters, and sometimes they'll cross over and have an adventure, but they just sort of live in these one-off sort of 8-issue chunks every now and again.
And don't get me wrong, I agree with that. I think that when we've seen like short runs on characters like, I don't know, I can't think now. Faith is like four volumes?
Yeah.
Or Quantum and Woody, same again, is like 4 volumes and done. I'm okay with that format. I think one of the things that's bothering me with Valiant at the moment is it seems like they're putting out 1 volume of everything, waiting for the massive hit that they'll then capitalize on. But if you do a Punk Mambo book and then wait for Punk Mambo to get massive, you're going to wait forever. And I love Punk Mambo, don't get me wrong. I think Punk Mambo's amazing, but
it was never going to...
I can only buy the trade once. Well, I can keep buying the trade, but ultimately it's just going to look really successful in Manchester, England, which is probably kind of fitting considering she's from England. So I don't know.
It would be nice for them to do like they did, like Vendetti did 50 issues of EXO, and he did them all, and that was a really good, decent run. And then they rested it, and then Kink came along and did 30 odd issues, was it? It's about something like that. Yeah, and again, then they rested him. And but at the moment, they're not even letting them go that far. Like at the moment, it's like 5 issues, you're done.
Yeah, we're not even getting a second volume for most.
Do we know if like Savage is a mini?
Yeah, Savage is just 5 issues, I think.
5, yeah. Which I think is a good thing for that particular, in a way, because it's quite comedic and it's fun, it's light, it's not telling a serious tale. I love it to bits, that book, but it's not ever going to be, it's not going to win awards, is it? But at the same time, I don't want it to just be there and then we leave it for years, like we did with Savage the last time, where we had a very quick run. We left it for God knows how many years, and then we brick it up again. It's completely different, which I like because we're reinventing it. And then we're going to leave it for a lot, many more years. And then, in 2028, someone will go, hey, should we do another Savage book for like 5 issues? It would be nice to spend more time with these characters and get them time to develop and have a couple of story arcs. I'm not greedy. I don't want, because this is why I don't read a lot of Marvel and DC, because it just gets exhausting trying to keep up with the same character week in, week out for, years on end. And it's like, just give him a rest. Chill for a minute.
Let Peter Parker sit down.
Yeah, let Peter Parker have 5 minutes where he's happy. I don't know. It's like, but at the same time, I don't want a massively long, goes on forever run, but I would like something a bit chunkier from Valiant that I can get my teeth into. And because I like reading singles, something that will actually get me excited month on month, that is going to keep me going for a little bit, because most of the singles that I read and enjoy these days are limited runs, and it's like I want something bigger that's going to last me, at least give me 12 months, for God's sake. Give me something.
Yeah, I hear that. I think it's not quite how I like to digest comics personally, but I get it. It is hard if you like buying singles, and I think that people get into those traps a little bit, don't they? They just keep buying them despite not enjoying them.
That is a problem.
That's why Angela can never quit Bloodshot.
Sadly, yes. God, I want to. But see, that's the other thing that annoys me. Is like the one that you've given quite a long run to is the worst book. Thanks, Valiant.
Yeah. But I think I'd almost prefer it that other way, where I can just pick and choose the best bits that I want to read. Because I will go back and read like Lemire's Bloodshot.
Yeah,
the best Bloodshot.
Because it's kind of a 3-volume, self-contained, and I will go back and read The Delinquents.
Yeah,
and I will go back and read Archer and Armstrong. I mean, that's 7 volumes, but nonetheless, it's a contained set of stories, and I like that they can live outside of the bits that I don't like. The following Archer and Armstrong series, or
what followed? There was no following.
No series after.
Just one really good issue where Faith and Archer go on a date.
Yeah, there's just that one. It's like a standalone.
Yeah, that was a good
Angela,
issue.
If you could have like any character or group at the moment have a run, who would you want it to be?
And why is it Archer and Armstrong?
Max?
And why is
in a different way?
I don't know. I'm torn with Archer and Armstrong because Van Lente's run was damn near perfect, and I don't want to sully that. But at the same time, I absolutely love those characters, and I don't want them to just live forever in the pit hole that was the last run, which is just, find a way to just erase that from continuity canon. Get rid. But there's so many Valiant characters that I want to see more of. Like, I want to go back to the Geomancers. I want to see Gilad again. I want more of that, because there's a whole lot. There's Kay McHenry. We've not seen, yay! Who is now Deathmate? Bring that back. There's hints. But yeah, any character. Exo probably not, because I think Exo's been done. I don't know. Eric's a dick.
There's allegedly an Exo Man-of-War trade coming out imminently.
Yeah, I think giving Ninjak a run would be good, because Ninjak had kind of simultaneous runs, but he had there was Ninjak and then there was Killers, and it just felt really bitty. You could do a proper Ninjak run. So yeah, that's not really.
There's a new one in there that's got unusual kind of 2D art. That looks pretty interesting.
Rumour has that the problem at the moment is there's not a lot happening with Valiant at all. It's just it was announced last year. In fact, if not even the year before, it was announced that the new Ninjak was coming, and we're still waiting.
I think that the new Free Comic Book Day, I think they've put together a taster of the new Ninjak, the new Harbinger, and the new Exo.
I don't want to take this in a kind of negative direction, but the world doth not need more Peter Stanchek.
That is true. The only thing I want to salvage from Harbinger is Faith at the moment.
And talk. Can't tell you why, but talk.
I don't know why I love Talk now. I hated the guy, and now I deeply, deeply care about Talk, and that's a really uncomfortable place for me to be.
Was it the one when he had to shrink his hands to play PlayStation? Because that really worked for me.
I think it's that same volume where whoever the artist was, it was like he'd never seen a baseball cap before. And every time he drew Talk wearing this hat, it was like, are you all right? Is this like your view of baseball caps? That they're like this alien concept that like...
Are you saying that we shouldn't employ people who've just woken up out of like a 70-year coma and have never seen a baseball cap?
Actually, this is something I was going to touch on. I'm just going to like asterisk this for the silver coin. Thank God that Michael Walsh has seen a guitar. Because one of my
choice of the Telecaster
biggest complaints in comic books is people who draw a Telecaster and then in the next panel it's a Les Paul and then it's a Strat and then it's just a plank of wood with a box taped to it. I'm really glad that he's like looked at guitar more than once.
I was gonna say, then like next panel it's like a shoebox with a length of like a kitchen, like with the kitchen roll holder, plastic bands.
Yeah, so I just want people to look at the things they're drawing before they draw them. If I'm asking too much, that's okay. I'm sorry, but
how dare you not draw from? But yes, I've not answered Matt's question, but yeah, all of them.
No, I was just curious because of how you were talking about it.
But yeah, I would. I think Ninja would be good to have a proper run. See, I want to see what happened to Generation Zero. I mean, they got killed off, but I want them brought back, and I want them to have a long, happy life where they exist and have adventures.
I completely agree with Angela, and I think I was in a lot of Valiant Facebook groups for a while, and I'm out of all of them now, and one of the reasons is everyone who isn't me and Angela hates Generation Zero, and I just want to make it perfectly clear, if Valiant, if you're out there and you can hear this, Generation Zero are the fucking bomb, man. You're Gen Zero.
I was into Gen Zero. I think
I remember liking them.
I think they could have been Valiant's opportunity to do something slightly akin to Hoxpox, where I would have minded to see Gen Zero go and make their own community.
Yeah.
Sort of carve out a bit of America which is theirs and use their powers to the service of their own community, and sort of have people looking on and being jealous that these Psyots who have been enemies of the state and enemies of the world have sort of carved out this semi-paradise, and within that you could have good stories about politics and the inner workings of this kind of paradise. But I think there's a lot you could have done with Gen Zero that now they're dead, so. And Valiant will never bring anybody back from the dead. That's what they said in 2012.
However, that was one of Dinesh's rules, and Dinesh's gone.
He's gone now. We could get in there.
He's got a whole new set of rules.
Yeah, he can do what he wants over at Bad Idea, but now DMG can just, go digging up whatever bodies they want.
Apparently ENIAC is really good, but I can't get it, so who knows?
Yeah.
I would like to put forward that if you want to review Bad Idea comics, despite the fact that we can't get them,
just write what you think it's going to be about based on the title and the summary.
If you want to cover every issue from Bad Idea on our website without any knowledge other than like the synopsis they put up, and
just hope that this means that they'll start sending you actual copies, so that you won't be.
Someone's got to make Will stop because he's just making up a comic book series and reviewing
ENIAC, the story of a beef sandwich.
Yeah, like.
I'd be up for that. If any of the weeks where we don't have that much to review for the site, we just make up some comics and review them.
I'm down with that.
I just like causing chaos. I think that's who I've become.
So,
remember when we were talking about this month's comics? And
speaking of which, I think that
was the many tangents of the podcast.
And now the many deaths of Layla. Yes, very good. So The Many Deaths of Layla Starr is my book this month. It's written by Ram V, illustrated by Filipe Andrade, with colours by Ines Amaro, and it's lettered by And World Design. It is basically it's set largely in Mumbai so far, and has that sort of classic premise of what happens when death is no longer is no longer a thing, like that when death stops being needed, and it's but like the interesting thing with this one is that that's not happened yet. We just know it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. The child who will basically defeat death has been born in this first issue. And as such, what I believe is Brahma, like the god, the godhead at the top floor of the business tower, has fired Death, which I think is Kali, and now Kali has been forced to take on a human form. Is most unhappy about this because humans age and weaken, they get sick, and if you do all those things but you don't get the release of dying, that means that you're going to be like that forever.
I really like that that's played off as like a termination package.
Yes.
Like, we're letting you go, but don't worry, you get to have a life as a mortal.
Yes.
It's
horrible deal. It's just got to be said.
Yeah. And Kali basically manages to says to the receptionist, essentially the private secretary, look, please make sure that the human body that I'm put into is close enough to this baby that I can kill them. And we've also been following throughout the story a girl called Laila Starr, who has, at a party, thrown herself out of a window. She's jumped out of a window and has died. Her body has been taken to the morgue, and that's where our two characters happen to meet. As Death is reborn in this body, in the same hospital as the child, baby called Darius. Now she goes off on this mission to kill him, aided or partially sort of aided by an adorable ghost called Mun Mun. I love Mun Mun.
I like Mun Mun very much too.
And yeah, it's all kind of it goes from there, and it's about sort of whether Death can do it, especially now that like they are in a human body and are burdened with human feelings and human weaknesses. And yeah, that's a lot of it. There's more, but I think it's more interesting to read kind of the rest.
Really enjoyed the tone of this book a lot.
Same.
I think we're quite used to seeing gods and pantheons being sort of normalized. Like, what's it like when a god has a job and
yes.
and all those things. The simple twist of sort of basing it on, I believe, Hindu.
I believe so.
Hindu deities,
yeah.
And that pantheon immediately makes it feel like familiar, but also really new. you kind of know the scenarios and the situations, but being that it's based on a different cultural basis, I think is great, and I think that gives it just such a unique tone. I think Mumbai looks really good.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to say it's a character. I think, but I do think that
Seawell, the city. It's the third main character.
Sorry, I was only going to finish off by saying I think in a lot of comics, cities become anonymous. Like it might tell you like this one set in LA, well, okay, but it's just straight steel grey buildings, and I think at least in this it looks what I think Mumbai looks like. I've never been, so I can't say for certain, but it looks different, and through that it feels different as you watch it play.
Ram has a lot of it, like not just experience with the place, but of writing set in and around it.
Yeah, I think the art actually feels quite similar to Anand Arkay's art for Graffiti's Wall, so it kind of feels like this is almost a kind of supernatural other side of the same kind of story.
Yeah, definitely.
It almost very slightly reminded me of a Ghibli, only in the sense that some people are drawn to be quite true to life, and some people are drawn as real, like caricature cartoon style. The woman giving birth in the back of the taxi, who is obviously becomes important to the story, she is drawn almost like
Mrs. Shah.
Mrs. Shah is drawn quite cartoonish, but Layla Starr herself is quite realistic broadly for comic art.
Yeah.
And I think that combination, just playing off against each other, just gave me that slight Ghibli vibes.
Yeah, I don't think that's something we often see with this kind of story. So that's it's a nice little contrast. I also thought for this, particularly in the narration, I got a real kind of Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore type vibe with the kind of style of the. Yeah, just the style.
Just thinking about American Gods.
No, I was actually thinking more like. Okay, so there's a lot of parallels here. In. Oh God, what's it called? Is it? There's that arc in Sandman where Lucifer quits. Is it? It's good. It's a very good bit of Sandman. It's It's like it's up there. It's either volume 4 or 5.
Season of Mists.
Fucking could be, couldn't it? I don't know. A Game of You, it is not. So let's go with Season of Mists. But I kind of got similar vibes with the fact that obviously like Lucifer quits and hell stops and no one's going into hell because no one's there to supervise and everything kind of gets put on hold. So I guess the feeling that we've got a similar narrative with, well, Death's going to stop and Death's unemployed now, so Death's coupled up with the narration style. And I've said in the past that I think Ron V and the rest of the White Noise Collective feel very Vertigo inspired. So I think there's just a little bit of a vibe there in the way he's written that narration that feels.
Yes.
I also just associate Alan Moore with that same kind of early Vertigo type thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love what Filipe Andrade does with like the bodies of the gods. Like allows like with Death being like Kali has like 6 arms. And they're always doing something, all of them, that you couldn't be doing with 2 arms. Like there's a great sequence where she's getting ready to go in for her meeting.
Yeah, like doing all the makeup in the lift.
Doing the makeup, and in one hand she has like the compact. In another she has like the lipstick. In one she has like powder and puff. Like, and with 2 others she's doing her hair while she has a folder. In another, and one like it's all stuff like that. And like with Brahma having like the multiple faces and stuff, and like how that kind of looks when they're in motion and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really sort of really well thought through, and sort of enjoys what these unconventional like bodies allow. And like even with like the clothing as well, that's obviously in consideration. Like when you know, like a suit jacket and a shirt has to have extra armholes, and stuff. Like it's very cool.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think the color palette's really, really nice as well. It's almost all purples, like pink through to blue, pinky purpley blue, and every now and again you'll kind of get a sort of quite orange moment, and then they really stand out when it hits you with a bit of kind of orange or quite reddy pink. There's a sort of 2-page sequence that's all done from first person when Layla Starr is running, well, death in Layla's body is kind of running down the stairs at the hospital. And that sequence, I think, is just superb. It's all done through reflection, and it just feels so kinetic seeing it, kind of that first-person view, and really surprisingly unique for comic books. It's now I've seen it, I think, why isn't there more like point of view art style?
Yeah,
that's true. Where's my like peep show comic? That's the
yeah.
Oh god, every issue just opens up with a lyric sheet to Flagpole Sitter.
Don't say it like that's a bad thing. I think the art's really nice, and I think the perspective stuff is really good. Especially like I like the way that we kind of see Mun in like almost every panel through that.
Yeah.
I think the kind of blue and teal are the colours I'm going to go with here. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Ghost is different. I think it's not a colour scheme I associate with ghosts that often. At least not ghosts in comics.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I'm into
but
that.
I think that's something, it's that sort of slight uncanny valley of the type of horror comics that we're probably quite used to seeing, but just through a completely different lens. And I think it makes everything a little bit more interesting because of that.
Yeah.
Every kind of element of it.
Yeah, it's like approaching something with a different cultural vocabulary.
Yeah.
And like
I know what a ghost is, but what's this culture's version of a ghost?
Exactly. Like what, how does what's this culture's relationship with certain ideas and experiences, like universal experiences like death, and stuff, like how are they kind of viewed, and stuff as like and anthropomorphized, like so it's always great to kind of the more of like similar starting point ideas for stories viewed through different cultures is a fascinating thing that I always want more of.
We've done quite a lot of Rom-V recently.
But
I think
you noticed,
I think just the reason being he's on such a hot streak. Everything he puts out is at the very least interesting.
Yes.
I must admit I haven't read any Swamp Thing as of yet, but it's giving me some Immortal Hulk vibes. So that's
Will, don't say that. That'll mean I need to read it.
It looks quite promising, and because it's got Rom-V's name on it, I think I might give it a dip. I don't know a lot about Swamp Thing as a character. I've read a couple of the Alan Moore trades early on, but
I can hook you up with some Swamp Thing. I own all of it because I'm
you can.
Fool.
Crazy fool. But I think we keep coming back to him for a reason. Is that he's just an exciting guy right now, and he's making some really, really interesting and different comics all the time.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good on you,
to you,
Ramsey.
sir.
I think that's one of the things. I think as a writer, he manages to have a similar style in a lot of his books, but I think he always has a different story to tell, and
just a style I really like as well.
Yeah, and whilst I think we get similarities, obviously we've seen repeated locations of India between Graphics Wall, Black Mamba, Laila Starr, that other one we read, these Savage Shores. but I think we always see a different side of that, and we always see. Maybe that's one of the things. It just feels nice to see something that's not New York City and not.
Yeah, not London.
It's maybe easy from a Western perspective as well to see Mumbai as just being one thing.
Yeah.
Or if you've seen one film that has Mumbai in it, but it's showing perhaps the slum side of life, a bit like Graffiti's Wall. But it is, of course, as complex and as rich a city as anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And to have somebody like Ron V, who obviously knows that and is familiar with it and can translate that into what is broadly a kind of Western medium, I think is brilliant. I think that gives I can learn something about Mumbai without, and I think that's great. I love it.
Word.
So, shall we go on to our individual rankings?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Who wants to go first?
Happy to go first.
Excellent, Will.
I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of derivation from this, I will be honest. I'm not saying my opinion is golden, but I think...
I'm worried we're going to have the exact same again.
I think me and you might at least, but then we do every week, so it doesn't really matter now, does it? We're just the different aspects of the same person, it turns out.
Oh, no.
I got all of the beard.
I was going to say, you're
hey,
the
I can grow a beard. I've just been shaving a lot.
I just can't stop. That's my problem. Right, so in order... number 1, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. I think it looks as good as it reads. I think it's super intriguing. Next down will be Silver Coin. I really like the anthology format. There is a risk that each issue isn't as good as the last because it is a different writer. On the other hand, there's also the risk that every issue is just fucking gold. And it's really, really awesome throughout. But yeah, excited to see more of that. Shadowman, I think, is partially problematic, but actually could set up a really good modern run of Shadowman. And I think Magic sort of doesn't quite succeed at anything it's going for, despite being quite pretty in places and, saying words like Niv Mizzet that I like.
Yeah. I hate you, Will, because that is exactly my order as well. Layla Starr, I loved it. Like I've said, it's the starting point of the story. The idea of what happens when death is eliminated, isn't the most original sort of starting point. But I do like the fact of it's not happened yet. We just know it's going to happen, and also we're seeing it through a different cultural lens. It's also gorgeous with the good colors. And yeah, so number 2, Silver Coin. I am a sucker for a good anthology series, and an anthology series where it's where with a strong sort of theme and something that unifies it well, even better. As long as they keep up having sort of good a good writer each time, I think this could be a great little series. Then Shadowman, I liked elements of it, and I do like Cullen Bunn, and I like some of the stuff he's done tackling similar things in the past. And so I feel like it's possible he could make a good series here. Magic the Gathering in last place. It was fine. It was a perfectly sort of serviceable thing that happened to have fairly nice art a lot of the time. If I say a little too clean, a little too shiny, a little too digital, but still really, really pretty. And I feel like I say, once the once having to get all that exposition out of the way is sort of done, that it could actually be quite fun, because it's a setting that is pretty much infinite, and you can tell whatever stories you feel like you can get approval for from the Magic higher ups.
I think it's worth noting it's more than a cheap cash grab at a license.
Oh, absolutely.
Despite us, I think, all being relatively negative about it, it's better than just that.
Exactly. I know that we've probably come off a little bit mean on it at some points, but it's. I feel like that something good could happen with it once the exposition gets out of the way. If it gets, if the characters develop more of their own individual voices as well. But yeah. Zach.
I'm going to go reverse order so we end on the positives. So yeah. So fourth for me is Magic. I've got two notes for Magic that I wrote down yesterday when I was reading it. One is, it's fine. And the second was, I think if you really listened at around 5:13 on Saturday, no matter where you were on Earth, you could probably hear the sound of me shrugging. And whilst I agree with what Matt said, and what Will said, I can't really remember what he said, but I'm sure it was nice.
It was Nizmivit.
Yeah.
I'm open to being proven wrong, but I don't think this will build into something where everyone has their own voice. I don't think this will build into anything. I think there will be one volume of Magic the Gathering.
Oh.
And we'll never hear Boom Studios talk about it again.
The prediction.
Zach has got his basically pointing
Make a
out
note
of the stadium. Zach is pointing out of the stadium. He's calling his shot. And he's waiting for the pitch.
I think we're going to get 6 issues, and I think Boom are going to go, well, we tried. And maybe we'll get a reboot from a different point of view. Maybe we won't.
Listener, please
write
remind
this down.
us.
Yeah, and check this out. But in a year's time, I want to know which has sold more, Magic the Gathering or Spawniverse.
Don't worry, Will. I'm going to buy 85,000 copies of Spawniverse. No, I can't even afford
85,001.
Second, no. I'm going to reverse order. Third, I'm going to go Shadowman. I want this to be good, and I want it to be a promising run. I'm just not sure narratively there's enough of a hook in this one to convince me. And historically, let's face it, I own all of Shadowman. Hell, I own most of it in singles and in trade. I have no standards. I don't care. I will read all of Shadowman, but
that doesn't mean you can't want better.
Yeah, I'm not sure I should read all of Shadowman. I just know I will. I think there's some cool things here, and I think the art is ultimately what's getting me. I'm not sure Cullen Bunn's writing is the real hook for this. We'll see. And I like Cullen Bunn, so maybe it's just the first issue isn't the most hooky of.
I can't remember whether it was Angela or Will who said it, but the idea of Shaman as basically being the intermediary, kind of the the kind of balance between them acting kind of to settle disputes and stuff. I think that could be a cool approach.
Yeah.
That we got a helping a monster who is in trouble, stuff where it's
I feel like we've even seen hints of that in previous Shadowman runs, where he's not always a total bad guy. I think, well, not a bad guy to the. Yeah. He's not always a total bad guy from the point of view of the demons. Was there a nice demon in something? Oh, it was. Yes. Oh no, God, that was Tama, wasn't it? Tama was friends with the nice monster.
Yes.
Stupid Jack. He can't even just be nice to the nice monsters. Gosh.
Jack's got issues.
Number 2. I'm gonna go Layla Starr. I think it's a killer first issue. That was a poor choice of words, but I stand by it.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna really enjoy it. I think it's gonna be probably a really good trade, and I think money on the table, cards on the table, something on the table. I think this should probably just be a graphic novel. I think if this was coming at me the same way as Graffity's Wall in the similar nice hardback feel, I'd love
this as an OGN, much in the same way we're talking about Carmen.
Last
time.
I'm not sure this needs single issues. I
think that this issue actually ends well for reading it in an issue by issue format, and if it does that each time, ends as well as this one does, I can see it working in issues. But at the same time, you could just have chapter breaks.
And don't get me wrong, if you can stick the landing on every trade, sure. But I want this in a nice, pretty hardback that looks nice with Graffity's Wall and that other one that we like, Black Mamba. I want them lined up in a nice. They're all in different categories because of the way I've ordered my books, but I'll change that. Whatever.
Which company was it that for a while would do a single issue and then a trade?
Scout. They're still doing it.
Scout. I think that's a good idea. Just that single issue to get a taste and be like, I'm into this, and then immediately go buy the rest of the story.
I've heard a lot that I've heard a lot from comic book readers that people who buy the first issue and then buy the trade are killing the business. So I kind of like the idea that Scout looked at that complaint and went,
actually, let's make that the business.
Let's make that the business.
Let's do it.
I think the problem with anybody who says they're killing the comics business doesn't understand that the business of comics is fucking nonsense.
Yes. Yeah,
it's just no other type of media in the world tries to sell their things the way that comics do.
It's like if I tried to tell you every single song from my next album and then asked you to buy the album as well.
But also, selling you the songs one at a time with a week in between. Sometimes there's a delay, you don't get it out. Sometimes the songs aren't even part of the album. They're part of another album that you're doing with somebody else.
And I was going to say, sometimes you've had to have due to deadline issues, you've had a different guitarist come in. And they have a totally different style.
Completely different. Yeah. Actually, that's a really good metaphor for this. And that sounds like absolute bonkers. And it is. So yeah, anybody who decides they're going to tackle the comics industry, good on you.
Controversially, do you guys want to release that album and just see how it goes? Sometimes we'll have clarinet and sometimes it'll just be a bass solo. Sometimes it'll be just, spoken word Matt.
Are we talking about are we talking basically about one of Brian Wilson's Mental Breakdown albums here, or are we talking about a Captain Beefheart album?
Oh, that's two sides of the same horrible coin.
Trout Mask replica.
This could be our Trout Mask replica.
Well, our replica Trout Mask replica.
Ooh, that's a good name. I like. Let's put a pin in that until we've stopped this episode. But number 1 is Silver Coin. This just speaks to me as the guy I am. Joe, as a guitarist, actually looks like my friend Kyle, which is all I could think from start to finish. And he was a good guitarist, and I haven't seen him in about 5 years. So let's just all...
Did he have a silver coin last time you saw him?
I'd never thought about it, but I just think this is a really good start to an anthology, relay race type story. And I think knowing that we've got Kelly Thompson, Ed Brisson, oh God, I'm missing someone.
Jeff Lemire.
But I thought there were 5. Is there not 5?
There might be.
Whoever. Jeff Lemire is obviously who I thought we were ending on, but I thought if this is Zdarsky, Thompson, Brisson, Lemire, I'm into it.
I think at least listed for the next issue. That's the
the
names.
And whilst I loved this
kind of Walsh. Walsh, Zdarsky, Thompson,
obviously.
Brisson.
Yeah.
So there are 5, one's just the artist.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So whilst I think this was a really good starting issue, and I'm kind of into the Pick of Destiny red shoes thing, the next one is Friday the 13th, man, and that's who I am. I'm gonna go put on a hockey mask, sit down and read it, you know, chainsaw next to me, machete on the other side, and I'm gonna have a fucking good time. So
Yay.
I'm sure that's what you all wanted to hear. Angela, what about you?
I am also going to go backwards. There'll be a reason for this. So, fourth, Magic the Gathering, the comic based on the game. Because, it's just a lot of exposition. It doesn't speak to me as a comics person who knows a little about Magic, but not a great deal. So it's failing me there. There were moments where I was like, I understood that reference and felt like I could almost. I was like, yes, I know who that character is. I've heard of them. But most of it just was like, there's a lot of reading here, and it's pretty, but that's about it. Didn't really do much for me. A shrug. Yeah, that's the way to sum it up. Third, I'm going to go with the many deaths of Lila Starr, but there's a very personal reason for that, in that I'm currently working through a bereavement at the moment, and reading about death doesn't really help with my headspace.
Yeah.
Bad timing.
Yeah, I recognise it's a really good book. I really like the art in it. I think the writing's really good. It's just me on a personal, emotional level right now really struggle to read it. So that's why it's there.
Yes.
That's why I'm going backwards, because I want to explain why I put such a good book third. Shadowman is not as good a book in terms of the writing, certainly. I really like the art. It's Valiant, so
I was going to say it gets the automatic Valiant bump up.
I'm
Extra
obligated. It's never gonna be last if it's a Valiant book. I'm morally obligated to have it higher than that.
Someday we have to take a look at your contract just to see if you've got a conflict of interest with the podcast.
Sorry, I can't, guys. Valiant have me. I really want it to be a good run. I don't think, based on this, there is potential for it to be good. I'm just really worried that it's not going to do as well as it should. Hopefully it will be a bit more coherent in terms of which Shadowman era it's going to hark back to and why. That would be pleasant. But I like the art. I like the Dead Side monsters, even though they're, evil.
They're cute.
Yeah, I can relate. So yeah, that's why that's there. And I'm gonna go Silver Coin at number 1 because I like the art, I like the lettering, I like the writing. It's just a nice rounded thing, and it is getting me excited about the next ones in that particular anthology run. But that as its own, if that was all we got out of the Silver Coin, I would be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, and that is like the fun of the anthology, that like I've said before, like, is that you can just get really excited for it, because like you're just like, oh yeah, like just we're getting something totally different but on similar themes like next time. It's always exciting.
It's what I get so much out of the sort of 2000 AD and Dread stuff.
Yeah.
Is that you've always got
your future shocks in there.
That's it. You've always got co-current stories that read from week to week, and then you will always have just one or two, often scattered in, that are just absolute standalone. Sometimes just 3 or 4 page stories, and they're often the ones that stick in the head the longest because they have quite a clear and poignant message, and it just plays out in like 5 pages or few.
Yeah. So should we have a word from our sponsors then? Angela.
Yeah. So thanks, Matt. So our sponsors are Travelling Man, and they stock things like Magic the comic and Magic the cards as well.
Everything you could possibly want.
Magic the Funko Pop.
And Magic the board game. I believe there's a board game as well.
Basically, if you like Magic, Travelling Man is an option for you for your retail for your retail desires for everything related to Magic the Gathering.
Love Magic, live in Lincoln, tough. There's no Travelling Man there.
So Travelling Man are in Manchester, Leeds, York and Newcastle, the north to some people. They are also at travellingman.com for those of you who are desperate to buy some magic related items and do not live in those cities or within commuting distance. So yes, there you are. They have other things. They have comics and games and everything you could desire in the Funko Pop line, mostly. There you go. Some of us are very specific about our Funko Pumps. I'm just saying.
There's been a quite specific vendetta on the, the Funko Corporation today.
I can't tell you what. Like, I am not their biggest fan.
Probably best you don't. We might be getting sponsorship from them soon.
Don't worry, I'll sell out in an instant.
God, I love Funkos.
Good to know. So yeah, there you are. Those are our sponsors. Check them out online, in person, over the phone, or if you're travelling interdimensionally, you might want to pop by.
Send a telegram, whatever.
Yeah. Homing pigeon.
So
semaphore.
On this,
just shout out your window.
Yeah, just scream into the void. They'll hear.
As long as you dress it to Travelling Man as you shout, it'll get there.
And say you were referred by Bigger Than Capes. Very important then.
So I think that might be the end of our April roundup. We've been Angela, Matt, Will, and Zach.
Yes.
We've also been Bigger Than Capes, and we shall continue to be. And remember that comics are bigger than capes.
I was first. I win.
That was nearly coherent.
That was almost good.